Welcome to 9 Bob Note with Paul Isles-Rush and Ken Moss.
Hello and welcome to 9 Bob Notes. I am Paul.
And I am Ken.
Welcome, Ken.
Yes, it's good to be back. The new year is strikingly similar to the old year I've noticed this time around. What have you got for us tonight?
Well, it's that time of year when we raise a glass and I salute my birthday honours.
Who's getting the gay treatment this year?
Well, this year I am going to nominate Alan Turing.
Well,
finger on the pulse as always.
Never let it be said that we're not a modern and up-to-date podcast.
This is up to the minute and topical.
Have you got an interview for us?
Yes, in fact, he's here tonight.
Tonight. Alan Turing. For a bit of background of the boys and girls at home.
Yeah, Alan Turing was a scientist, a mathematician, and largely considered to be a genius. He's probably most famous for being responsible for breaking the Enigma code, which was...
Yes, during the second series of World War.
Yes. Yeah, but he also did quite a lot of things. So he was one of the people who were responsible for the evolution of modern computers.
Yes.
Yes. He came up with something called the Turing test. I don't know if he gave it the name, but it's now known as the Turing test, which was about whether a computer can be seen to be intelligent, which is if you are talking to it, can you tell whether or not it's a computer? That's essentially what the test is. And I also read today that we now use the reverse Turing test pretty much every day when we do one of those capture things when you fill in a form, which is to determine whether you're speaking to a robot or not.
Yes, when a robot asks you if you're not a robot. Oh, what an irony.
Generally regarded, though, as one of the brightest and best British guys that there was. He was voted in 2019 by a BBC series which was called Icons, which was trying to find the best person of the 20th century. And it was separated into different categories, and one of the categories was sort of science, discovery, that kind of thing.
Best person called Alan Turing.
And so he won his heat, and he then went on to win the whole thing. So he was named...
He was named the best person in the whole of the 20th century.
Yes, yes. But of course, from the point of view of this podcast, he was also a gay.
He was. He was a confirmed bachelor.
And he was convicted of being a gay. Because back in, I think it was 1952, actually, that he was convicted because it was against the law to be a gay. And he was convicted, and he was given the choice of being imprisoned or what is known as chemically castrated, where he was given a bunch of awful things, which basically, the idea was that it would dampen his libido and make him more masculine. But it seemed to have the effect of just basically making him feel that life wasn't worth living, and he died a couple of years later of cyanide poisoning. And the verdict was suicide, although there's questions about it. Although I was reading that he may have left things up in the air as to whether or not it was suicide because he didn't want his mum to think that he'd killed himself. So a very sad ending to a very interesting and fulfilled life.
Yes, I do remember a couple of years ago, wasn't there some big push to get him a posthumous pardon?
Yes, he was pardoned, and then that brought in something which is called Turing's Law, in which people who were convicted of being gay have been pardoned retrospectively. And I believe the Queen...
she got a pardon.
She was pardoned, whether she wanted to or not. Yeah, the late Queen posthumously pardoned Alan Turing.
But she pardoned him from beyond the grave.
Yeah, he was still alive.
She was that good.
Yeah. She's posthumously doing things every day.
Oh, never stopped working. No. I'm ashamed to say I don't know enough about Alan Turing, beyond obviously his work with the Enigma code and the stuff that he's done with computing. And I'm ashamed to say I still don't know enough about that. I really should have looked into it, because computing is sort of my thing and has been code and that sort of thing. Yeah. This is shameful, really. The first time I ever really got exposed to Alan Turing was in a Doctor Who adventure.
Aha.
Yes, he was in an early 2000s 8th Doctor novel. And yes, he was living over a pub. And Paul McGann, his doctor, came to stay in that pub, and they had pots of tea together. And the landlord and lady of the pub thought, two men upstairs, living together. What's going on here? Yeah, so it was all very... Alan Turing clearly fancied Paul McGann.
Of course.
But then who doesn't?
Yeah, I've often thought that Doctor Who would be quite a good place for an adventure with Alan Turing. So I'm glad they've done it. And
well, not at the minute. It'd be played by a bloody Indian. Colourblind casting. Yeah, we'll get. I don't know. Idris Elba. He'll be good to play Alan Turing. Don't get me down that path. No, I think so. I mean, there's figures that they've used up all the big figures of history. So, with Shakespeare's been done a few times. They've done a few of the kings and queens. Do somebody from history that isn't overly represented in things. I think that would be a very good one, actually.
Yeah, like they did with Tesla.
Nikola Tesla, yeah.
Which, it was unfortunate timing. But, things where you learn something about the person as you're going along. So, yeah.
Well, there's various periods of Doctor Who that I've learned or been energised to learn about that period in history. There was one in the 60s called The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. I've never even heard of this. It's certainly not something we do at school. And you go back and it was this major thing in France, this whole sort of Catholic Protestant revolution culminating in the Queen at the time just sending everybody in and massacring anyone who wasn't the correct religion. It was... but we never taught this. We never heard about this. So...
God, no.
Yeah, Travels of Marco Polo. I'd never heard of Marco Polo until I crops and et cetera, et cetera. So yes, but it's nice to see people like Tesla, who was arguably, and indeed his wife, whose name completely escapes me, but she was brilliant in her own right. She came up with a load of things.
Yes.
I'm being really forthright and incisive with this and saying exactly who these people are and what they did. I can't remember. My head is cluttered at the minute. You must forgive me, boys and girls. I'm in the middle of a house move and, yeah, my head's a little bit foggy at the minute. But yes, an excellent choice.
I was having a bit of a struggle. I have found it very difficult to pick a notable gay or a notable LGBTQ person to bestow one of the highest honours in the land, the birthday honour.
Prestigious, I think it would be called. I'm quite surprised that Sam Smith hasn't been...
Let's not even go there.
You've not pinned anything to him with a sledgehammer.
Absolutely not.
Oh, sorry. Them.
Yes. Sorry.
Mustn't misgender, but... yeah, I did actually, while we're on that topic, I saw there was a retrospective of Sam Smith the other day, and there was a picture of them from about 2014 or something like that in a very smart dinner suit. And I've always thought, quite a good voice. But I don't know what the human wreckage is that's on stage now. Good grief. There was a video posted the other day of his latest concert, and he's prancing about in a G-string and nothing else. And I know we're not supposed to fat shame, but that was my body on stage, and I don't like my body very much. It's certainly comfortable.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I feel like we should pick out some... I was about to look up Nikola Tesla then and pick out some fascinating facts about...
I did read one thing that when he was found dead, there was an apple, a half-eaten apple next to him, which they assumed he had loaded with cyanide, which caused his death. Although he did have some scientific equipment in his spare room, which was something to do with electrolysis, and that gave off cyanide fumes. So it sort of, he made it a bit ambiguous as to whether it was an accident or not. But they also thought that the fact that he'd left a half-eaten apple was because he was trying to reenact Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was his favourite fairy tale. No idea. No idea.
Oh, here's something. Cue the oracle. In the 1940s, Turing became worried about losing his savings in the event of a German invasion. In order to protect it, he bought 2 silver bars worth £250. Current price is £48,000. And buried them in a wood near Bletchley Park. Upon returning to dig them up, Turing found that he was unable to break his own code, describing exactly where he'd hidden them. That, along with the fact that the area had been renovated, meant that he'd never regained the silver.
A victim of his own success. Oh, quite an interesting man. Yeah, it might be worth putting him on the old dinner party list. I might consider that when we ever get round to it.
When we get round to the dinner party episode. Oh, he was engaged. Turing proposed marriage to a fellow colleague, Joan Clark, a fellow mathematician and cryptanalyst, but their engagement was short-lived. He admitted his homosexuality. She was reportedly unfazed by the revelation. Oh. In December 1951, Turing met Arnold Murray, a 19-year-old unemployed man, and they began an intimate relationship. Turing's house was subsequently burgled. Murray told Turing that he and the burglar were acquainted, and during the police investigation, he acknowledged a homosexual relationship. That's how he was convicted. What a sad story. Over the course of the Exton Moss experiment that I do with Simon Exton, we've watched several sort of homosexual things from wow, I'm selling this. But one of them in particular was a dramatisation of the Wolfenden Report, and it included a lot of interviews with people from the 50s and 60s who were, they'd been gay during that time. And it completely broke me down to tears because it was clear how lonely life must have been.
Yes.
And I find that heartbreaking. I just think what a cruel world it must have been if you were gay.
Yeah, it's very easy. And it's difficult when you think this was not too long ago. This was in our parents' lifetime.
It's only 60 or 70 years. It's not a huge amount of time, in the past. Not long years past. It's not even a century ago.
No. It's very sad, especially when there's people like Alan Turing who have brought so much and done so much. I mean, if he hadn't cracked the code on the Enigma machine, then
this could be a German podcast.
Well, exactly, yeah. This could be a whole different thing.
Yes. So, Alan Turing, raising a glass to you, sir.
Cheers.
Yes, Queen! Yes, Queen! Yes, Queen!
There we go. So we're going to leave the LGBTQers of the world to fight it out over who's going to be in your birthday honours, which can't be too far away now.
They can't.
And until then, we will bid you farewell.
Ta-ta.
Nine Bob Note featured Paul Isles Rush and Ken Moss. Title music was by Mark Shyman, and the programme was produced by Maverick Productions. For more information, please visit maverickproductionsuk.blogspot.com or find us on social media.